I've been wanting to do this video ever since I started the channel, as it covers one of my favorite watches. The reason why that portrait keeps creeping into the frame. Now with Singapore moving into phase 2, which means that we can go out and meet our friends and socialize, I was able to get my hands on a Speedmaster Hesalite version, so I can finally get this video done. Anyone wanting to buy an Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch must first answer a very important question that this video is going to cover. Sapphire or Hesalite? For the purposes of this video, I'm using the current iterations of these versions. Enjoy. A quick shout out to Faz for generously lending me his Hesalite Speedy for this video. Check out his Instagram for some amazing watch photos. Before we pitch both of these watches against each other, Guys, come on, be civil, yeah? Go back in your box. So before these watches go head to head, let me briefly go over the history of the Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch, although I'm sure most of you watching this video are already aware of it. In 1957, Omega released a trio of watches that have become icons for the brand and in the watch world. They consisted of the Omega Seamaster 300, the Omega Railmaster, and the Omega Speedmaster. At the time, Omega Speedmaster was intended as a sports chronograph. This watch had sporty looks, including curved lugs, a black dial, and broad arrow hands. It was the world's first chronograph wristwatch with a tachymeter scale on the bezel instead of the dial, and had the now rare and famous caliber 321. Omega never planned for the first Speedmaster to be the first watch on the moon, or have any connection with any space travel. It was only when NASA astronauts Walter Schirra and Gordon Cooper each purchased a CK-2998, which was the second edition of the Speedmaster, in 1962 for use in spaceflight that the connection started. Speedmaster's space journey reached its peak with the Apollo 11 mission. The crew of the Apollo 11 consisted of astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. All three wore their Omega Speedmaster Professional on their trip to the moon. Armstrong and Aldrin, who both set foot on the moon, each wore an Omega Speedmaster Professional reference 105.012 throughout the mission. However, only Aldrin took his watch with him onto the lunar surface. This exact moment is where the legend of the Moonwatch was born. So that was a very quick and brief overview of the vast epic history of the Speedmaster Moonwatch, which if done right needs its own video. The Moonwatch has remained relatively unchanged since the moon landing. Today you can walk into any Omega authorized dealer and buy a Speedmaster. The reference 311.30.42.30.01.005 remains unchanged in many ways from the watch that made history. Even the Hesalite crystal remains. Hesalite is Omega's name for acrylic or plexiglass. Alongside the Hesalite version of the watch, Omega also produces a Moonwatch with sapphire crystals on both the front and the back. Other than the crystal used and the slightly different finishing on the movement, this watch is the same as the Hesalite and is dubbed the Sapphire Sandwich. It is the reference 311.30.42.30.01.006. Both these versions have a 42mm case, are around 47mm lug to lug. The Sapphire version has the thickness of 13.5mm compared to the Hesalite's 14mm. Both watches have a modest 50m water resistance, and the Hesalite version is also noticeably lighter. If you were to just look at these two watches from a distance, without actually holding them in your hand, it might be very difficult for you to differentiate between the Hesalite version and the Sapphire Crystal version. So let's look closer and go over the differences, pros and cons of choosing either of these. Hesalite, which is basically acrylic, is used as a watch crystal because of its toughness. While not as hard as glass and therefore less scratch resistant, acrylic offers twice the resistance to fracturing. And any light marks can simply be polished out using something like polywatch. It also doesn't shatter on impact, rather it cracks, which helps maintain its structure and therefore reduces the overall damage to the watch. Its toughness is why NASA decided to retain acrylic for the Speedmaster's crystal when it was selected as the official watch of the Apollo program. On the other hand, sapphire has a hardness beaten only by that of diamond, and a toughness some 10 times greater than glass and 4 times greater than acrylic. It's strong, clear, and most importantly, virtually scratch-proof, at least when compared with Hesalite. That's it then, you should get your Moonwatch with Sapphire crystal. Well, unlike Hesalite, scratches on the Sapphire crystal cannot just be polished out should they occur, and sometimes the entire crystal has to be replaced. Also, take a look at the Speedmasters side by side. See how the acrylic is gently domed, whereas the Sapphire has a more rounded, artificial looking step? While acrylic can be formed into complex shapes with ease, synthetic Sapphire must be machined and then polished from a solid block. Being right up there with diamond on the hardness scale makes that a very tricky and lengthy process. The acrylic crystal is very thin around the edge, while the Sapphire is a lot thicker. This thickness of the crystal at the edge forms a milky white ring around the dial. It is dubbed the halo effect for the milky ring that exists when looking directly down on the dial. Some appreciate the Sapphire halo, while others dislike it as it takes away from the overall clean Speedmaster dial. The other difference between the two are only seen when the watches are flipped over to look at the case back. While the Sapphire Crystal version has the exhibition case back displaying the beautiful caliber 1863 and the inscription "the first watch worn on the moon," the Hesalite version has a solid case back with the same inscription and with the added line "flight qualified by NASA for all manned space missions." This is absent on the Sapphire as that version is not flight qualified. The Hesalite version has the caliber 1861, which is basically what the 1863 is based on, but because the caliber 1863 is on display while the caliber 1861 is hidden behind a solid case back, the 1863 is the more attractive version, featuring circular graining on the base plate, bridges with Geneva stripes, also known as the Côte de Genève, and polished edges on levers and bridges. Additionally, the caliber 1863 is equipped with a metal chronograph brake, while the caliber 1861 is fitted with a plastic polymer material chronograph brake. Both movements are hand-wound chronograph movement that operate at a frequency of 21,600 beats per hour and provide a power reserve of 48 hours when fully wound. They have 18 joules and the parts are rhodium plated. While both movements perform identically, caliber 1863 is the luxurious version of the caliber 1861. It is more aesthetically pleasing. So, to the question of Hesalite versus Sapphire, it of course all comes down to what's more important to you. The Hesalite version is what the crew of the Apollo 11 wore on that historic journey to the moon, but the crystal will pick up marks and we are not going to the moon. We probably will use it as a daily wear and would not want to have to deal with the scratches. And also we can't admire the movement because of the solid case back. So the Sapphire offers increased peace of mind against knocks and scratches and has an exhibition case back so that you can spend countless hours admiring the movement. But then its shape is not as organic and it has that milky ring, and purists don't love it because it's not the Moonwatch. There is a reason why Omega still offers both variants of the same watch. That's because the decision hangs in the balance and only you can decide. I chose the Sapphire version because scratch resistance is important to me and also because I love the exhibition case back. Faz, who lent me the Hesalite Speedy, told me that he bought the Hesalite because all the Speedies that went to the moon had the Hesalite crystal on it, and also because the Hesalite version is cheaper. The decision can be stressful, but the good thing is that you can't go wrong with either of these. And no matter if this is your first luxury watch or your 20th, this watch is a classical addition to any watch collection at any given time. Let me know in the comments down below if you are Team Sapphire or Team Hesalite. And if you like this video, do hit that like button, and also please do subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram at WineOnTheMove. Until next time, cheers.